Let me introduce you to Oakley Court. This grand Gothic mansion, now a hotel, was once used for exterior shots in many British films. Notably used by the Hammer Horror Film Company, their unique blend of period drama and fine performances was the influence behind many British horror films during the late 70s, the period of their infamous demise. One of the benefactors from this was a young filmmaker called Norman J. Warren. They proved that British horror was worthy of the world's attention. This programme takes a look back and reminds us of a great time of British filmmaking, and a look at an independent filmmaker who dared to take Hammer one step further with a unique blend of new wave British horror films.
Come away. Look, let me go! Alexander, come and help me. I can't hold her. Let me go!
Stephen, the fire extinguishers!
Turn around, come on.
So how did you start as an independent filmmaker?
Well, actually, I don't think starting as an independent was the intentional thing. It really came from a desire. I was already working in the industry as an editor and assistant director and so on. And of course, my desire was to direct a film, a feature film.
Feature film.
And at first, of course, when I took scripts to people and so on, they said the usual thing, yes, thank you, it's very nice and so on, but come back when you've had more experience and so on, the usual sort of catch-22. So with friends, a cameraman, and another cameraman, in fact, and one who owned an equipment company, we decided really that the only way we were going to achieve it was to try and make our own film. So really it was this was the beginning of the independence by being forced into that situation. And we went through the usual horrors of trying to raise finance and met hundreds of people over the years who made promises, and of course none of those promises were ever fulfilled in the end. And so just out of frustration, actually, we said in the end, well, let's just do it ourselves. And so the main producer, Les Young, who had a camera hire equipment company at the time, mortgaged his company and his home.
Oh my God.
Another one cancelled some shares that he had in Mothercare, which was fortunately doing very well at that time. And I put what needed, a little bit of savings I had and my time. And we said, right, we'll now make a film, which turned out to be a film called Satan's Slave, which is a horror film, as the title would suggest. And the reason for choosing a horror film was not only because that was the medium I personally liked and wanted to work in, but we studied the market as to what was the most commercial film to make if you were making it yourself for a small budget. And horror always came out on top. It was a choice. We could have made a sexploitation film, but to be honest, we really didn't want that. We preferred to go the horror route.
Yeah, and make some money and make more movies.
Exactly, yes. Yeah.
In respect to Norman J. Warren as a director, talking about his films, it's the fact that British films, which I feel have died out as far as the horror genre goes, and maybe the science fiction genre goes, it's nice to know that maybe on your doorstep that British films were shot and you had a British horror film made here. The film in question was Tales of Witness Madness, which was made in the 70s. It's directed by Freddie Francis. And the house in question, which is the house on your left here, was used in one of the segments of the film itself, which starred Joan Collins. And obviously the interiors were studio. The exterior shots, which are set in the back of the garden, were actually shot at Shepperton.
Right.
And the bridges used in that was the same bridge that Norman used in Prey. It's funny that you think about British films, the fact that this film was shot here. This is Surrey, which is kind of supposed to be the quaint part of England. They shot this film here, and it's the fact that it's very, very, very British in its concept and its look. I feel that's where film has changed now. Once upon a time, a film concentrated on a story. You had characters that were clearly fleshed out, which I felt Norman's films worked well on that scale. You had characters that were fleshed out. Nowadays, films with like Train Spotting, Shallow Grave, it's more a multimedia exercise. The film has a low budget, has to rely on gratuitous violence and bad language, and there has to be a certain coolness there. It's not too cool to be British anymore.
Your time has come, Catherine. You are 20 years old, the age at which Camilla departed from this earth. You deserve to be told something about our sacred lady before you give your soul up for her.
There's no need.
Then we can proceed. The ritual burning. Take her.
So how much did the film cost to make?
Saved and Slave. The total budget on Saved and Slave was, believe it or not, £35,000, of which we had 15 in actual cash. And the rest we did on deferments with the hire companies and the technicians and so on.
It's brilliant.
So, yes, it's hard to believe what it would cost now.
How much would it cost now, do you think?
Oh, it's hard to say now. I think you'd be lucky to come in much less than $1 million now, even if you made it in the same way. But,
Where did you make
prices
it?
have changed. We made it at a wonderful house in Purbright in Surrey, which belonged to a baron and baroness. And the house was discovered by the art director, Hayden Pierce, and they were pleased, to let us, well, crazy enough, I should say, to allow us to go and film in their house. And it was a wonderful location because not only was it a large fake Tudor house, it was full of genuine antique furniture, which was theirs. And it also had 5 acres of land at the back, including its own woods.
The film Prey, also known as Alien Prey in the States, made in 1977 on the backlot of Shepperton Film Studios, was Norman's second film in the horror genre. For this, he continued a unique mix of isms. Cannibalism and lesbianism were key to the plot of an alien being and its arrival on Earth. His presence interrupts a relationship of 2 lesbian lovers, Jessica and Josephine, who take him into their home, totally unaware of his intentions and who he really is. For this quickly filmed venture, Norman manages to deliver a claustrophobic and nightmarish atmosphere of human drama as well as alien.
The lights and the noise.
Must have come from the village.
No, it came from the sky.
What did?
I woke up and the whole room was filled up with this green light. And there was this noise like a roar. And then the light disappeared.
Must have been a dream.
What made you
Take the part?
take the parts? Yes.
Straight out of drama school,
Straight out of drama.
very good drama school,
Yeah.
where they told me, when you begin, you have to do everything that you're offered because you might never work again.
Work again.
And I thought, well, beats going up to Butlin's holiday camp and entertaining the tourists. Come and make a movie at Shepperton Studios with wonderful Norman J. Warren and many others who shall at the moment remain nameless since I've got hysterical amnesia. But it was wonderful. It really was wonderful. We had a great time. We were a team. Everybody involved in it had made wonderful movies.
Yeah.
Sally Faulkner was so supportive, and she rescued me when I drowned in the middle of the film.
The 2 characters in the film, Jessica and Josephine, played by Gloria Annan and Sally Faulkner, are alienated from the rest of the community. There's a wonderful piece of dialogue in the film in which Sally Faulkner says, the people in the town talk about us.
You know they talk about us.
Who?
People in the village.
Why?
I don't know. Jealous.
And it instantly underlines the fact that they are alienated because they're lesbians. They are alienated from the rest of the town. You then had the Barry Stokes character who is alienated from his own kind and enters their world totally unaware of human existence, what it's about, how to survive, how to live, how to behave socially. And you have then the triangle, the human triangle. It's not a heterosexual relationship, it's a human triangle.
It just, to me, from why I went into this business was not really to be an actress. It was eventually to make feature films, and I sort of imagined myself able to do that one day. And so I really wanted to learn everything about it. And to be involved in an independent production, you can do that because people will answer your questions, you know. They really want to make movies.
Yeah.
It's not somebody handing them millions of pounds to do something and everybody's, you know.
Gloria Annan's character is a gentle, innocent character, bisexual, and you have the Sally Faulkner character, that's Josephine, who is an out-and-out militant lesbian. And there's a sequence in the film in which she is strongly rejected by the Barry Stokes character. And the Gloria Annan character sees the Barry Stokes character as a form of release, as escape. So the film is also about escapism, escaping that dominant side of the dominant kind of thing. And the film fleshes that out beautifully. Norman has fleshed out the three characters and given them an individuality. I think that's quite rare with a horror science fiction film, which you don't get.
And I just wanted it to work. I wanted the character to come across, and that somehow this strange story would be real, that the girl would be real for people, not just, you know, not real.
Okay, so this is where we shot. If we look over here,
Yeah.
we're just walking a little bit here. This is where we shot Prey. You shot Prey.
Yeah, this famous place. I had a parrot in here, which I see has been probably eaten by some monster.
Yeah.
All the plants are gone too, but it's wonderful, isn't it?
It's changed quite a lot, really, hasn't it?
I wonder if the same guy who did Kew Gardens did this place. I think actors trained in this country, I'm Canadian, but I went to drama school here. It's a totally different thing than the rest of the world. You really want to do this job, and you will do anything to do it.
Yeah.
And whereas at home, you say, okay, are they paying me to get to the studio, and you wouldn't do it. It's a kind of a different training.
What do you mean? We've never played this game before.
You're like a caged animal.
No, Anders, it's not like that. I can do what I want and I can go where I want. I prefer to stay with Jo because she protects me and she loves me.
That was easy. No imagination at all.
It was just a practice run so Anders would understand. Now it's your turn to be the hunter.
Count to 50 and we'll hide.
I think, really, I mean, it would have been difficult to do a heterosexual relationship. It would be difficult to have an alien invade the lives of a heterosexual couple, because within Prey, the Gloria Annan character, played by Gloria Annan, that's Jessica, she needs to escape. She's dominated throughout the film and she needs to escape. She's dominated by a person of the same sex, which makes the film more interesting to start with. If it had been a husband and wife relationship, it would have been instantly cliched, I think. As with this film, it's not cliched. It's totally not about that. It's about a love triangle, and it's a human drama within a science fiction horror film, and I think that's a very rare quality.
I only did it to protect you. He is insane.
Only a game.
He's an animal. You must believe me. Come outside and I'll prove it to you.
Yes, I do, but I agree entirely with what Gloria is saying about the relationships. It would have been nice to have had the opportunity to work on that more, as it would have been with the alien, played by Barry Stokes, the alien in his search for food on Earth, and his encounter with this unusual couple as far as he was concerned. But there really wasn't. Unfortunately, the film was made at a great pace, speed.
Yeah.
It was. I've never actually run or worked so hard.
But for such a great pace, there seems to be a lot,
Oh, indeed.
lot achieved.
But I was going to say on the script, you see, it was the same thing. I mean, remember that Terry Marcel asked me if I was interested in doing the film, to which I said yes, and he had the idea for the story, and he said, we haven't got a script at the moment, and by the way, we have to start filming in 3 weeks. Well, I mean, we actually started without a script, and so that's why I said there wasn't time to develop, and we were all thrown into it very fast. And then with a 10-day shooting schedule, as Gloria said, it was really much a question of let's get on to the next shot, and the actors, who I think the whole cast did a wonderful job, because they had to be left very much to their own devices.
For Norman's next venture, the budget was stepped up once more for the special effects required for the visually challenging film Terror. inspired by Dario Argento's Suspiria made in 1976. With his use of garish colours, odd lighting and masterful set pieces, Norman and his collaborators were impressed by this European approach, which Terror managed to do in its own style.
Suspiria, 1977, directed by Dario Argento. Terror, 1978, directed by Norman J. Warren. What's the connection, I hear you say? Well, Terror basically was very heavily influenced by Suspiria. To the extent that there's a witch, there has to be a witch, doesn't there? Some very unrealistic but effective lighting, lots of reds and greens flooding the screen, and plenty of blood and flashing knives, which you'd expect from a Giallo type movie. In fact, Terror has been described as a British Giallo, and that's a very accurate description. It's a very brutal film, though because of the slight supernatural overtones of the movie, maybe this is diffused slightly to the extent that it has actually been passed uncut for this country, which is something of a first. I doubt very much whether you could get away with making this kind of movie nowadays. I mean, the British film industry was devastated by the Tories coming to power in 1979, and is only just starting to really pick up again as of now. And there really isn't the market nowadays in this country for this kind of film, I think. Too much nonsense has been said about violence in films and video nasties and all that stuff for people to feel comfortable with making an out-and-out horror movie like this, which is a dead shame, because basically we need people like Norman J. Warren to be making films like this. You know, we can't just have endless period dramas set in India and wherever. You know, they're great for Britain and they're great films, but, you know, there's room for some exploitation as well, and I feel this has gone out of the British filmmaking industry, and we need it back badly.
Films that we made ourselves that way, Terror was certainly the most successful. The Terror actually got a release everywhere throughout the world, theatrically, and then later, of course, on video and then television. But on its initial release in the cinemas, it was actually doing so well at all of the theatres, and in fact, it was only for 1 week, but a point that's always I'm actually very excited about, because it was so unbelievable, and I still can't believe it now, that for 1 week in London it was actually the #1 film. It had outgrossed all the big films. I'm missing that only lasted for 1 week, but it was really nice to see it on the front page of the trade papers, and to realise that, you know, our little film that was made really with a lot of affection for what we were doing and very little money, that there it was, really pulling in big audiences.
Okay, Nigel, compared to other British horror films that were being made, how do you think Norman's films stand out?
Well, the difference is a whole difference in style and approach, really. In the mid-60s, Dracula may well have risen from the grave for Hammer, but by the mid-70s, Hammer was sinking into the grave. And a whole new style of horror was coming along. In America, we had Wes Craven making Last House on the Left. A few years later, we had Tobe Hooper making The Texas Chainsaw Massacre. In the face of much more gritty, brutal horror movies like that, which took their basis in everyday occurrences and were obviously things that could happen in real life, the old fantasy type films that Hammer had done so well with in the 50s and 60s really didn't cut it anymore. You know, they have their place, they're great fun, but along came a new wave of British low-budget, new wave horror filmmakers, if you like Pete Walker with House of Whipcord, Frightmare, and of course Norman J. Warren with Satan's Slave and Terror, which we've already talked a bit about. And yeah, even though Satan's Slave and Terror both have witches in and a kind of sub-Hammer story running underneath it, there's a lot of things to kind of earth them in everyday occurrences. They're kind of basically things that you feel could happen. They take place in recognisable locations in Britain. They have people talking the then current language of the times, wearing the clothes of the times. Audiences then could equate more with what was happening on the screen rather than Count Dracula coming out of a castle in Transylvania, and I think that's mainly the difference.
For Norman's last major contribution to the genre film in 1980 with the award-winning cult movie Inseminoid, released as Horror Planet in the United States. The film was chosen at the Trieste Festival of Science Fiction Films and also received an award at the Madrid Science Fiction and Horror Films Festival, with this being Norman's most expensive production, costing in the region of £1 million. He again secured a fine cast of acting talents, including Robin Clark, Stephanie Beacham, Judy Geeson and Victoria Tennant. In Inseminoid, a group of explorers arrive on a desolate planet and find markings of an ancient civilization on a cave wall. The civilization turn out to be alien in every way, and later on in the film they impregnate one of the crew members, Sandy, played brilliantly by Judy Geeson, whose sufferings turns out to be consequences for the rest of the crew. And later on, right at the very end of the film, she finally gives birth to one of those aliens.
Oh no. Gary, what's the matter? She's breathing the atmosphere. She's what? Oh no.
I mean, by the time we were doing Inseminoid, of course, you had Alien, which was a big production from 20th Century Fox, and and certainly no small independent producer could actually match anything of that size. And so, sadly, a lot of the horror and science fiction things were beginning to fade away in the way that we'd done films before then. So Inseminoid was really one of the last, I think, of independently made films of that type made in England.
Now we'll never know what happened.
It's the end of our project.
It's always a struggle to find somebody who will be willing to finance your dream, the film that you want to make. But what has changed now from going way back from Prey and Satan's Slave that we talked about earlier, which, remember, that's quite a few years ago now. The biggest problem is that the industry itself has changed. And so it's, even if you go through all the struggle of raising the finance, the big problem today is to actually get your your film, so it's seen in the cinemas, because sadly the independent cinemas and the small distributors are really a thing of the past now. And,
but couldn't you just go to find out who the head honcho is in distribution companies, like territory by territory?
And, yes, you can.
And as long as you have a track record of some kind,
yes.
You could say, okay, I made this much. That's the problem, I suppose. Independent productions, you get stolen blind on when you
yes, you
first
do,
start
yes.
out.
Yes, you could do that, but what I'm saying is that the system has changed in so much that because there's no independent cinemas, it's not easy to get your film, even if somebody is willing to put it and wants to, it's very hard to find an opening to put it onto a screen, and hopefully several screens, because one screen is not really going to produce a great deal of return for you.
Could you go to film festivals and
yes,
say,
you can, yes.
produce it like, this is what I want to do, this is who will be in it, this is how much it's going to cost, and then get a big company interested?
Oh, yes, you can. I mean, when I say you can, I mean, you could try that and you could be very lucky. Yes, you should certainly do. But I think really you try every avenue open to you, and certainly going to film festivals and all the film markets, such as Cannes, the one we all know of, because behind all that razzmatazz there is actually a marketplace, where the hard selling and buying is going on, as with the American film market and the MIFED in Italy every year, and Sundance now, which has become a major market to go to.
Why don't we have a Sundance here? Why don't we get one of our
I don't know. No, England is very behind on that, I'm afraid. I mean, we had the London Film Festival, but that really doesn't... I mean, it's a nice thing, and films get seen there, which are not going to be seen anywhere else, but it's not really a marketplace yet. So, no, England doesn't have... There's nothing in England that happens like that yet. No, don't ask me why. We've always tended to be...
The old school tie, I think, gets in the way.
Very much so, yes.
Sharon. Sharon.
horrifying today. It is a problem, I think, because sadly, I have to say, we are sort of surrounded by so many sort of natural horrors all the time. I think everybody is getting to the point where they're almost anaesthetized when it comes to nasty incidents that you might see in a horror film. But having said that, the very basic shock moments and so on, if you could make people jump, that still seems to work. And I'm convinced that's because it's coming back to our basic instincts again, basic emotions. It's back to the whole thing of people saying boo, and it makes you jump. And that's what I mean by sort of shock moments. But showing something which is horrifying, it's obviously becoming more and more difficult. But I would still say that you can do it, I think, if you can create that atmosphere in a film, how with a good story, good characters, characters that you actually believe in and want to know and get to know, then when you introduce anything that's going wrong, I think you can still get an audience reaction to that.
With the recent re-releases of Norman Warren's films on video cassette, the interest in independently made British productions obscured by the vast output of genre films made during the 70s appears to be ripe. Although still remaining obscured, there seems to be a revival of interest in this period, which came just before the time of the mass markets of video and the cinema multiplex. The making of small genre independent films in Britain has greatly diminished, yet the indications of video sales, literature and documentaries like this one suggest an interest still to be there. Perhaps it is our need to see different ways of storytelling, rather than the mass productions of the big studios, what we are told is trendy.
When we were filming Prey on the very first day, and we were doing that scene where the Barry Stokes alien character is drowning in the River Ash, was anybody aware that I was actually in trouble, that I was actually going down for the third time as you filmed on and on and on?
No, I have to be very honest with you, we didn't realise that you actually were in trouble. Naturally, we just thought you were giving an most amazing performance, and as you said, it was your first day on the film, all for all of us. And we were thinking, what a wonderful actress, this is so convincing, how to portray a drowning.
Sally Faulkner, she noticed finally that she reached around and grabbed me and hauled us both out of the river. And then the ambulances came and picked us up. My first day on my first film out of drama school. I'm taken by ambulance to the hospital. And then the nurses were all asking us, we're going to give you a tetanus shot. Actors probably like getting needles.
Really?
Yes. I thought we were all potential drug addicts.
Yes.
And we
Just go along for your daily fix.
Yes. Oh, God.
No, I didn't know that. No, I mean, maybe going to the hospital for your tetanus. No. Mainly because that river as well was not exactly clean, if I remember rightly.
Calling command ship. Send advance parties immediately. Have now established humans high in protein and easy prey.